The Care Compass Network Regional Trauma Informed Care Network's first annual Partnering for Resilient Community Virtual Learning. It wasn't supposed to be virtual, but as everything else in the world it is, but it's going really well, we think. Thanks for joining us for the Resilience Focused Art Therapy Workshop. My name is Kate Corello. I'm the Vice President of Strategic Initiatives at the Children's Home and a proud member of the Care Compass Network's Regional Trauma Informed Care Network, which formed in April 2019. Our team consists of dedicated and passionate individuals from colleges, county government, healthcare, social care, human services, and schools spanning across Care Compass Network's 9-county region in the Southern Tier and beyond. Our team envisions a resilient community built upon strong partnerships, trust, and compassion. Our mission is to implement evidence-based trauma-informed care by supporting the development of resilient and strong partnerships, individuals, families, and communities through advocacy, education, and empowerment. A core strategy to bring this to fruition is to create and promote access, availability of training, educational tools, and resources for our community. So before we get started with the presentation, I'd like to go over a couple of housekeeping items. The presentation is going to be recorded. Everyone was muted upon coming in from the waiting room. We're reserving the last 10 minutes for question and answer, but if you have a burning question that you'd like to ask throughout the presentation, feel free to put it into the chat. If you get into the chat, it's going to bring you right to everyone. If you don't feel comfortable asking your question to all 70 participants that we have in the presentation right now, you can scroll for my name. Again, my name is Kate Corello, and you can scroll for my name and just send the question to me, and I can get it to Emily. We will be sharing the slides. I know that's a question that a lot of people ask during presentations. We will be sharing the slides afterwards to your email that you registered with. So you'll get a link after the presentation. And everyone should have received handouts prior to the presentation a day or two ago. And we're doing an art therapy presentation. We're talking about a lot of mindfulness. So it would really help Emily as the presenter to be able to see as many faces as possible. So to increase socialization, the practice of really being present and to get the most out of the session, we'd really encourage everyone to share their video. I mean, we're not saying you have to, but it would be nice. And if you're sharing your video and you have to take a break for something, feel free to just turn your video off, and that would be fine. So I'd like to introduce our presenter now. Emily Walsh earned her master's degree in transpersonal counseling psychology and art therapy from Naropa University in Boulder, Colorado. She's a registered and licensed creative arts therapist, celebrating 6 years in private practice at the Art Therapy Studio. She facilitates individual therapy, groups, and professional trainings on mindfulness and art therapy. During her career, she has worked in a variety of outpatient settings, including previously running the art therapy group at the Nutrition Center's IOP in Ithaca. She has 5 years of experience utilizing trauma-focused CBT and art therapy with children and teens that have experienced and at times inflicted sexual trauma. She's a founding member of the Open Art Hive, a free, inclusive community art studio in downtown Ithaca, hosted at the Ithaca Generator, which is run entirely on donated and recycled materials. She's recently in love with having the opportunity to educate adults, clinicians, and professionals on concrete and creative self-care skills that address the difficulty of times we're living in. She loves tailoring offerings and providing trainings and welcomes being contacted. Please welcome Emily Walsh.
Thank you, Kate. Welcome, everybody. So as Kate mentioned, you guys were emailed handouts. So if it supports your learning to have those in front of you, you're encouraged to do that. You're also encouraged to take notes and doodle if that helps you retain things. As someone who uses their hands a lot and is an art therapist, obviously I'm always pro doodling. You will need paper and pen or pencil. And then you have the option to use colored pencils or markers if that sounds enjoyable to you. If that sounds stressful to you, just stick with the things that you're comfortable with. But you'll need those for the first, third, and last activity. So we're doing 4 activities, and you'll have the opportunity to use those in 3. And then also make sure that you have enough space near you to be able to pace, because we're going to be doing walking meditation. And then lastly, part of this invitation to keep your screen on is that in the last activity, you will be invited to share either what you write or draw. And I'll say more about why I'm giving that invitation when that time comes. So today's session focuses on 2 resilience skills. The first one is focusing on what you can control. And the second one is tuning into what's good and what's working. So you're going to learn 4 practices that support these skills. So in our time today, you will learn how to identify what is and is not within your control through Byron Katie's 3 types of business. You will learn to let go of what's not within your control and decrease stress through 5 senses mindfulness. You will increase knowledge of what's working and increase your sense of gratitude with walking meditation. And last, you will increase your knowledge of what's working and again, increase gratitude and increase coping through an exercise called resource mapping. So if you are following along on the handouts, we're going to start with handout number 1 that says Byron Katie's 3 types of business on top. So this is a method of how to identify what is within our control. So the 3 types of business are my business, so that's our own business, and that's the only thing that's actually in our control. That is your thoughts, your feelings, and your behaviors. The second type of business is other people's business. So that's their thoughts, their feelings, and their behaviors. And that includes people's thoughts and feelings about you. So this is a very big area that we can spend a lot of time in our brains. And it's really helpful to have this framework just to note that that is something that we do not have control over. And then the last type of business, you can label it based on your own belief system. You can call it reality's business or God's business or nobody's business. So it's anything that's totally out of our control, like the weather or the body and family you're born into, the distant future, or like the timing of when things happen in your life, like when is my one true love finally going to show up? So that's all the third type of business. And again, ultimately out of our control. So we're going to practice a little bit of application of using these 3 types of business. So I'm going to invite you to pick something that caused you stress, a situation that caused you stress today or yesterday, and recall the details, and then follow these 4 application steps that are on the slide. So start by just telling the story of what happened, what the situation was, and then follow the steps. And especially when we're first learning to use this model, it's really helpful for us to write this stuff down so that we can, for ourselves and for our clients, to write this stuff down so we can learn it. So I'll give you about 7 minutes now to write. So about 3 minutes left for this part. So if you're not on step 3 yet, I encourage you to scoot your way towards step number 3. So just about 1 minute left. So use the last minute just to come to a stopping place for now. You can always go back to it later if you need. Okay, so I'll invite you to put your pens down. And like I said, you can always go back to it later. Um, so I just wanted to give you guys an example of how I use this with clients. If I have a particular client that I notice that a lot of their anxiety seems to stem from being out of their business, so like they spend a lot of time talking about or worrying about what other people are going to think of them, or they spend time worrying about how things went in the past or worrying how things are going to go in the future, I just introduce this model to them. I say, have you ever heard of the 3 types of business? And then I explain the model. And it's so simple. You know, most people just get the concept right away, but it's one of those things that is really powerful only if you use it. And so with clients that have this sort of tendency, I just start to sort of prompt them when I notice they're wandering around out of their business. I just say, whose business are you in right now? And that gets them to catch themselves like, oh, I'm out of my business. And so if you are a person who's interested in using this model, I invite you to do the same thing. If you notice you've spent a lot of time in your brain and are feeling stressed, just take a moment to ask yourself, whose business am I in? And then over time, you'll start to catch yourself more quickly when you're out of your business, or your clients will start to catch themselves more quickly. And then our conversations can shift towards what's actually within our power. Like, okay, well, what is it that I can actually do about this situation? And a lot of times that leads to conversations about coping skills for emotional stress, because sometimes a person's spending a lot of time in their brain thinking about controlling all of these things that are out of their control because they're just anxious. And that's what our brains do when we're anxious. So then how do you soothe the body when the body is anxious? And it really gets to the root of what's going on. If we can clear our minds, pay attention to what's actually within our power, and then come back to coping skills. So I wanted to give an opportunity for people, if they had comments or questions right now, feel free to put those in the chat and look for Kate Corello in the chat. And let me know if there's a difference that you noticed in sort of how you were initially telling your story. And then once you followed the application steps, you know, how did your focus change? And then also just if you have comments and questions, feel free to put them in the chat.
No questions right now, Emily, but Karina made a comment that they use this at a preschool with preschoolers with paper and 3 baskets, write something and ask them who controls this, them, parents, or no one.
Oh my gosh, I love that. I've never heard of that. It's brilliant. I love it. Yeah, it's so smart to teach people as soon as possible. That's great. Thank you for sharing.
So we have a question from Emmy, wondering how you navigate someone who may be in someone else's business and take it on as their business because it affects them.
Yeah, so it's really important to validate that other people's business affects us. You know, that's what family is. That's what partnership is. That's what community is. So, you know, just really emphasizing, of course, it affects you. And then, you know, I just continue to encourage people to notice how much time they're spending in their thoughts and their feelings, focusing on these things that are out of their business. And just notice if that is helping you feel less stressed or more stressed. Because a lot of times when people catch themselves in these patterns, they're like, oh, you know what? It's actually more stressful for me to think about this person and how all of their actions are going to affect me than the amount of time I actually spend with the person. You know, like it might be, you know, you're spending all of your lunch break thinking about your spouse and that stupid thing that they did when your spouse isn't even in the room. So, you know, their actions aren't actually impacting you right then. You are impacting you with your own thoughts. So, yeah, that's a good question. So we have time for probably one more question or comment if there are any.
None in the chat box right now.
Okay. Okay, we'll have time at the end too. So, you know, as we're going through things, if you sort of think of a question that's for something we already did, feel free to put it in the chat. So we're going to move on to our next practice. And again, if you're following along with the handouts, this is handout number 2. And it is 5 senses mindfulness. So we just talked about the difference between what's in our control and what's out of our control. And that question about, you know, but what about the fact that all of this stuff that's out of our control impacts us? So then we need strategies. How do we cope with all this stuff that makes us feel vulnerable, really, because it's out of our control, but it still affects us? So we need strategies to let go of all of the stuff that we can't control or change. And, you know, it's an experience that we're having a lot more often lately. Just walking out our door sometimes is making us feel vulnerable. Being out in public is making us feel vulnerable. And so finding ways to ground yourself into the present moment is really important. So this practice supports letting go of what we can't control by bringing us back in touch with the reality and spaciousness of the present moment by tuning into our sensory experience. And that can be a source of rest or goodness, just kind of relaxing back into yourself. I use this particular mindfulness strategy with clients who have a goal of learning about mindfulness, or who have goals to reduce anxiety. I also use it as a way to invite clients to move out of the swirl of their thoughts and into their bodies. So, you know, like we were talking about with the 3 types of business, it's hard to stop the habit of obsessing over these things that are out of our control in our brain. So this is a really good strategy for shifting out of thoughts and into our bodies. It's an excellent beginner exercise for that. So you can follow along on the handout if you wish, or you're also welcome to just relax back and listen and allow yourself to be guided. And you may want to face away from your screen for this part. So I'll just invite you to settle into a position that is comfortable, but that also supports you in staying awake. And I'm actually going to begin with a poem. It's called 6 Words of Advice by Tilopa, translated by Ken McLeod. Let go of what has passed. Let go of what may come. Let go of what is happening right now. Don't try to figure anything out. Don't try to make anything happen. Relax right now and rest. So we're going to practice together for about 7 minutes. So begin to breathe in through your nose. And notice anything that you smell. You can also notice the sensation inside your nose. You can allow yourself to be aware of the sense of temperature of the air entering your nose. Bring your awareness to your mouth. Notice anything that you taste. You can move your tongue around inside your mouth and lick your lips if you want. Just notice any sensations in and around your mouth. Now, whether your eyes are open or closed, notice what's in your visual field. Allow your sense of sight to relax back and soften. Allowing your eyeballs to rest back into their sockets and be receptive. allowing yourself to be aware of color, texture, light, and dark. Allow your eyes to relax and be open and receptive to what's in your sight with no effort from you. Notice how being open to your senses takes no effort. You can relax back and just be open to what arrives. Bring your awareness to your sense of touch. You can begin with noticing specific parts of your body, like your feet, inside your socks or your shoes, or against the floor. Be receptive to places of contact between yourself and anything that's touching you. Allow yourself to relax against what is supporting you. Notice how the furniture and the floor support you. You might be aware of how your breathing is moving your body, aware of clothing touching your skin, awareness of the air, any sense of temperature. Now allow your ears to soften and relax. Allow your hearing to be receptive and witness how hearing takes no effort. Sounds arrive spontaneously without any effort from you. You might notice sounds within you, like your breath, or sounds within the room. You might slowly widen your awareness, even noticing sounds coming from outside the room. Finally, bring your awareness to the entirety of yourself in this room now, with all of your senses open and receptive. Bask in the feeling of receptive relaxation. You can bring this awareness and relaxation with you as you open your eyes if they've been closed. And you can allow yourself to move in any way that your body wants, if you wish, as a way to transition. Bringing your attention back to the screen. So if anyone has comments or questions, you're welcome to put them in the chat. Again, to Kate Carello.
Bukant made a comment that she enjoyed that exercise.
Oh, good. So that was a kind of abbreviated version. We did that for about 7 minutes, which It's a nice amount of time for a beginner. If you want to get really relaxed, you can just let yourself spend longer in each of the five senses. Five senses meditation is really nice because it's easy to remember. I tend to follow the way that they're structured on my face. So I did it differently today, but when I'm with clients, I'll do eyes, nose, mouth, ears, and then touch.
Got a couple more comments. People are feeling very relaxed and enjoying.
Yay.
So.
Good. Yeah, so I wonder if you guys can imagine sort of the exercise that we just did, the 3 types of business, and what it would be like to notice like, oh, I'm spending so much time out of my business today, and to do a 5 senses mindfulness is a way to let go and relax and arrive in your body so they can pair nicely together.
This is kind of a question, kind of a comment, Emily, that this would be something you would use with both adults and children?
Yes. Yeah, children are really open to mindfulness stuff, and you know, most of them are pretty good at it. they're better at it than adults a lot of times, I think. So yeah, and you might want to just be conscious of having it be shorter. But yeah, kids can get like little balls of dough. They just get so relaxed. So it can be hard with, a kid who has ADHD. You might want to do a mindfulness activity that's a bit more stimulating, something that kind of grounds them into their body more, like maybe squeezing their arms back and forth, or squeezing their legs. So, you might want to adapt based on what's going on with the kid. Okay, anything else, Kate? Okay, we'll move on to the next one. So this is handout number 3, walking meditation. So I'm going to start with a quote by Mark Nepo. Being human, we struggle constantly to stay with the miracle of what is and not fall constantly into the black hole of what is not. This is an ancient challenge. So this practice supports tuning into all these million little details that work and function for us every day in our daily routines. So I'm going to describe the practice, and then we're actually going to stand and practice together. If you are more comfortable having your screen off when we're standing and pacing back and forth, please feel free to turn it off. So first I'll describe it. Oh, and I also wanted to note that this practice is really useful for people who are depressed or who are struggling with ruminating thoughts. This practice is really useful for interrupting and resetting a negative focus or negative thought patterns. I have, in this time of meeting with clients only via telehealth, I've done walking meditation with clients just like I'm going to do with you guys right now. So just so that you can be aware that this is something that you can do. And in a time that I did this with a client recently, a client who was depressed, we practiced this together for about 10 minutes. And they said that they noticed a visceral change in their body where, so we know from body scans that when people are depressed, the energy and the warmth in their body is condensed into their core, and their limbs aren't getting as much blood flow. And so this person had cold hands. And so they said after we did this walking meditation together, their hands were not cold anymore. And they could just feel more energy in their limbs. And so that, it's nice to know it can work that well, potentially. So I'm just going to go through the instruction and then we'll do it together. So the instruction is to start in a standing position that is dignified. So basically you just want to be aware of the crown of your head being lifted, and maybe lift your heart slightly, let your shoulders relax back and down. And then just begin by allowing your awareness to open to the sensation of contact between your feet and the ground. So that's the first instruction. Just standing, dignified, aware of the sensation in your feet. The second instruction is to very slowly and intentionally lift one foot and notice the shift of balance throughout your body. And then place the foot down, heel first as you rock forward on the back foot and begin to lift it. So walking meditation is done very slowly. And then as you begin to move, bring awareness to each aspect of sensation in your feet. Notice how each part of the foot feels. So that's how we're gonna start. We'll just start with walking. And then the last instruction, once we've paced back and forth a few times, we're gonna start to, with each step, name to yourself something that is not broken, that is okay, or that is working. So the bar is set really low on purpose. We're not actually aiming to name what's good. We're aiming to name things like, I have a roof over my head. The faucet has water that comes out of it. I've had enough to eat today. My arms are not broken. My relationship with fill in the blank is good. My light bulbs all turn on. I haven't had to change a light bulb in a month. So we're looking for this kind of stuff because this is all the stuff that we don't notice. And noticing this stuff gives us such deep gratitude, like, oh my gosh, I'm surrounded with, wealth, really, with all of these things that are working that I just take for granted. So, and that's why it's so powerful with depression and decreasing rumination. So we're gonna transition now to practicing together. So I'm gonna invite you to stand up. So again, you're gonna start by allowing yourself to come into that dignified position. So you're gonna be aware of the crown of your head. You're gonna be aware of your heart center being slightly lifted. You're gonna allow your shoulders to relax back and down away from your ears. And then you're gonna bring your attention to the sensation in your feet. So begin by noticing the contact between your feet and the ground. And then with slowness and intention, lift one foot and notice the shifted balance throughout your body. And then place the foot down, heel first as you rock forward on the back foot and begin to lift it. So notice how slowly I am moving, like a little turtle. I'm moving very slowly. So as you begin to move, bring awareness to each aspect of sensation in your feet. Notice how each part of the foot feels as you roll your foot very slowly. So we'll just take a few moments to just have a mindfulness of the sensation in our feet to begin. Now I'm going to invite you to begin to pair each step with naming something that is not broken, that is okay, that is working. If you can't think of something, just pause until you can think of something. And it is also okay to just repeat something that you've already said until you can think of a new thing. We're going to practice for about 10 minutes. So about 1 minute left. And again, remember, it's okay to repeat things. Okay, and then I'll invite everyone to come back to your seat. So, I'll just invite you to get out a piece of paper and pen, and I'm going to invite you to spend the next 5 minutes just writing down some of the things that you thought of as you walked. So just making a list. Okay, so about 1 more minute for this writing part. And again, it's just coming to a stopping place. You can always go back to it if you want. Okay, and stop that part. So I just want to name that that was a long time to do walking meditation, and hopefully you're not judging yourself for not being able to come up with a lot of things or repeating things or finding it difficult. It's normal to find it difficult and to judge your experience of it. It's at least in mainstream white culture, this is not a thing that we tend to do. Pay attention to all of these little details that are working. We do a lot of emphasizing on bigger and better. So this is the sort of practice that gets easier the more that you do it. And I would invite you to consider where you put the list that you wrote out. So you might want to put it on your fridge or put it on your mirror. Because just having the reminder of all of these things somewhere in your environment will help you remember to be grateful for these things, and maybe even serve as a reminder to practice this again. Maybe even serve as a reminder like, oh, it's been a month since I wrote that list. What can I update that list with? So and also I wanted to name that one of the ways that I use this with clients is if they already have a walking practice, just to add this into their walking practice. So it might just be on the path, from their door to the end of their driveway. They use that as an opportunity to name with each step something that is working or is okay or is not broken. Maybe as you're cooking dinner, moving back and forth in the kitchen as a time to do this. So anytime you want to build in a new habit, tying it to something else that you're already doing makes it much easier to do it. So just encouragement of how to put this into your life. And I'm wondering if anyone has comments or questions on this part.
So there was one comment that there was one comment and one question. This was very enjoyable and practical. Noticed that the person manifested a lot of things they wanted and all they have to be grateful for. It seemed longer that it was, and silencing the phone was not enough. Lots of good things, and love the point of the cultural aspect. And then there was a question about would you recommend doing this meditation with your eyes open or your eyes closed?
I always do it with my eyes open because I'm walking and I don't want to bump into things. So yeah, I do walking. Oh yeah, I do it in the same place in my office, and I do it with my eyes open so as not to trip. but so yeah, that's interesting because it can be when you're first learning this, and the idea is to be keeping some attention on the bottom of your feet, it can kind of feel ungrounding or disorienting to be moving. So if that's your experience, if it feels a little ungrounding or disorienting to be moving through space, slow your pace down and narrow your focus. So maybe just look at the floor as opposed to sort of looking up and around in the room. Like only have your gaze on the floor in front of you. And it is sort of an advanced instruction that once you get more used to it, you can bring fuller attention to the rest of your body. But that's why the instruction is to start with your attention just on the soles of your feet. And like I said, to keep your focus of vision narrow can be useful too. Feel more grounding. Any other comments or questions? Okay, so we'll move on to the last activity. And this is handout number 4, if you have your handouts with you. And that handout has a little bit more details of what to include on this resource map. So the practice of making a resource map supports tuning into all of these things that are working and not broken and what's good in your world. So again, I'm going to explain what a resource map is and what to include in it. And then actually before you start making your own resource map, I'm going to share an invitation to share what you come up with and why. So a resource map is a place for you to collect sources of support and strength near and wide. You can make separate maps for your professional life and your personal life, or you can combine all the information into one place. So gathering this information into one place validates the abundance of support we have in various forms. And then this acknowledgement fosters gratitude and empowerment. When we're reminded of what's available to us, we're more likely to remember it and then use it when we need it. So the first time that I made this map was when I was feeling really isolated in a job. I felt like the clients had a very high level of need, and it was really difficult for me to feel like I could help them and like I was doing a good job. And it felt lonely being in my office all day, just me and clients. And so I don't even remember how this happened, but I decided to make a drawing of my office. And in doing that, all of a sudden I was aware of all of these little things that brought me pleasure or a sense of support. So I ended up drawing my art materials, and because I drew my art materials on this little map of all of the things that I had available to me as resources, I remembered that I could be making art for myself, that I could turn off my screen, step away from typing notes. And if I'm feeling stuck with a client, I could use my markers, and that might help. And I don't think that I would have done that if it weren't for making this resource map. And then like other little things like, oh, I have this lamp that, you know, is this beautiful turquoise and I love looking at it. And so just being more conscious of letting myself look at that lamp when I'm with a client, if I'm having a moment of not knowing what to do or feeling stressed, like letting my senses have a moment of taking pleasure in my environment as a form of self-care, just right then and there in my office. So you can organize your own resource map like a little map. This one that I made up on the screen here, I oriented by the directions. So I put my friend who lives on the West Coast in the Northwest corner, and I put my friends who live in New York City down in the Southeast corner, just because it's oriented to where I live in Ithaca. So, and then also, you know, I kind of oriented things that seem easiest to access in the center and things that I access less often or are harder to access towards the outside. So it's totally up to you how you organize it. You might want to include a compass or a legend if that is fun for you. So let yourself have pleasure and fun in making this. So this is what to include. Physical items. So be really detailed, like the practice of walking meditation. How many items do you come in contact with at a day at work that support you in your work, which maybe you don't pay attention to? You know, like your pen, your phone, your computer, the chair you sit on. So name all of those things because they're important. You're interacting with them daily. They're a sense of support. And maybe even bringing more attention to those things could make you more viscerally aware of them supporting you. Include people near and far, dead and alive. So who can you rely on frequently? Who can you contact when you absolutely need to? Who has mentored you, taught you life and professional lessons? You can also include groups. What supports you physically? So again, include the practical stuff like chairs and desks, but also consider delight and pleasure. What brings each of your 5 senses ease, pleasure, joy, or delight? Again, being conscious of pleasure and delight and ease is a very important way to support your spirit and your body. Include personal inner and outer qualities like imagination, strength, self-compassion, perseverance, detail-oriented, that kind of thing. And then you might want to reserve a special place on the map for very important resources like books, shows, places, movies, people, food, etc., that you return to over and over again because they feed you and give your life meaning. So before I give you time to make your own resource map, I'm going to invite you to consider sharing your image and or list when you're given the opportunity after you have time to make it. I feel like, especially because a lot of us are in a career field that focuses on supporting other people, sometimes the idea that we ourselves are one of the few sources of support that other people have can be really stressful. So each of us holding up these maps can be a representative of how many resources each of us have as individuals, and then collectively as a community. And so you might want to consider doing this with your clients too, especially if it's a client that you feel like you're alone in taking care of them. You might be surprised by the things that they come up with that you never knew about. And it can be interesting to revisit it over time and see if you guys can add to it. So I just want to invite us as a community together today to help decrease our stress by just holding up whatever you come up with as a way to validate we have so much together. There's a lot of feeling of scarcity and fear lately, so I think that could be a nice moment. I also just wanted to name before you had time to make your own that if you work with groups, this can be a really nice thing to do with a group. Have a group make this together. I have a friend who works at a homeless shelter, and she plans to work with the group there to make a version of this that they can hand out to newly homeless people, because she's aware that the system is stressed. And so she wants to come up with a way for people to be sharing information without having to go through social services, for example. So they're going to make a pamphlet of all of the resources that are available to newly homeless people. So you will have 20 minutes to work on your own resource map. And again, let yourself enjoy this. If you want to use markers and colored pencils because that brings you pleasure, please do. If it makes you happier just to write a list with a pen on a piece of paper, please do that. And I'll give you prompts as it gets closer to time to pause your your work here. So you have about 6 minutes left, just so you have a sense of the time. And again, you don't have to be complete with this. You're welcome to work on it again later. So use the next 2 minutes to come to a stopping place. And again, your image or list doesn't have to be complete. And if you want to even set an intention or a time to go back to it, you're encouraged to do that. Okay, so I'm actually going to turn off the PowerPoint so that we have an opportunity to share our images as a group. So if you are comfortable sharing your image or your list, all you're going to do is simply hold it up to the camera. And so then also make sure you take some time to peek and look at other people's maps and resources and smiles. I see a lot of smiles. So just as a reminder that, you know, we are collectively going through a lot right now, but everyone here was able to come up with a very, it looks like, full page of resources. So that is resilience. Yay! Thank you, everybody. Okay. So thank you so much. And we have a little bit of time left here for questions or comments at the end. And then we are ending at 2:50 just in case people have to get to the next workshop. Thank you for holding up, everybody. You can put your images or lists down. Does anyone have any comments or questions, things you're wondering about, curiosity? Anything you want to share?
Emily, this is Buham. All of these activities has been so powerful. I mean, just to me, they are so simple and so practical. And it's just, I know we take things for granted as all of us professionals throughout the day, right? We're so busy that we forget to take time to be thankful and to take the time to just debrief on, go through just some of these exercises. What are we most grateful for? And it's amazing. I kind of cheated because I have a whiteboard right here. So I started just drawing, and then I'm a terrible drawer. So I just wrote down things, you know, like lectures. I love giggles. I love powerful hugs. You know, it's just like it brought me to a place of just comfort and so many things that I am so blessed and thankful for. So thank you, Emily.
Yes, I'm so glad to hear that. It was fun. I noticed you doing that whiteboard and I was like, oh, I hope you leave it up for other people in your organization. You know, that's a fun thing to think about, like, oh, I made this resource list that's about me and my workplace. And then if you just strategically leave it up on your on your wall, and you know, it might help subside sometimes we can get into like complaining circles, and so it might be just like a little visual reminder of like, what if we just, you know, move into a gratitude circle.
Bukam, should I unmute people so they can ask questions?
Sure.
Everyone? Okay, so everyone's unmuted at this point if anyone wants to ask any questions.
Or just to share.
Hi, this is Chris from Shenango Health Network. I just wanted to say thank you because it really, I was just in the other training earlier today with self-care, and this really fit along with that and actually gave me, for my personal, just to step back a little bit and practice my own self-care, even though I push it out to a lot of other people. So thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome. It's so important for us to take really good care of ourselves right now. Our hearts are tired. So I'm glad that people felt like they had the chance to take a break and take care of themselves.
And there's a lot of great comments too, Emily, about adding these tools to people's toolboxes and who they can use these with, and a lot of really nice comments you're getting here in the chat.
Good.
Oh, Tracy just reminded me. I just put it on there, our Survey Monkey or our evaluation. So please complete that when, prior to you going to our 3 p.m. session. If you're joining us for our last session today, we would really appreciate it and all the feedback, because these are the kind of things where if you feel value, there's benefits. These are the kind of things where we want to bring forth to our region and continue to support trainings and self-care and evidence-based practices just like this. So please complete that evaluation for Emily and our team.
And Bukam, I just remembered that you had said that you were also thinking about sharing the link to the video on resilience.
That's correct. I'm gonna have to, oh, where is the evaluation? Okay, I just cut and pasted on there, Stacy. Hold on. That is crazy. Thank you, Amy, for saying that. I'll have to work with our marketing manager. But
I did share it again in the chat. You'll find the survey link. Oh, is it not? Oh, it's not there at all, like when you click on it. Oh.
yeah, because I think it's because they went in and completed the self-care survey, and now it won't let them complete this one. So let me talk with Melissa on that, who's our marketing manager, and then we'll send it back out to you. Okay.
We can put it with the links with all of the slides, right?
Yep. And I will also share with you the resilience video that Emily and I shared with one another. It's so powerful. I'll have to find it, and then I'll send it out to you, to all of you. And
So I see a comment that about the 3 types of business that I didn't see earlier that says, I'm not sure about number 2. I don't know what you think about me. And I'm not quite understanding the question or the comment. So if the person who asked that question wants to clarify, I could maybe speak to that. I'm just not quite sure what the question or comment is asking.
Whatever it was you're doing.
That was a while ago. I think it was like on the
Yeah.
first slide you were talking about. So it might have kind of got lost at this point in time.
Yeah.
right,
Well,
I don't think she is not. Is MK still here? Initials MK? No? Okay.
So it might be a question or comment other people have too. Well, I'm really grateful for all the feedback, and I'm glad that people had such a positive experience. I don't know if it's okay to wrap up a few minutes early, Bukam?
I think that's always okay, Emily.
Okay. That's how I always
Thank you. Thank you so much, Emily. I think
You're welcome.
I can speak for everyone who wrote in the comments, and just for myself, this was wonderful. A lot of good tools to use, and it was just felt really good to do all those activities. So like we said, do the survey, watch for the links for the slides to come to you. And on behalf of Care Compass Network's Regional Trauma Informed Care Network, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.
Bye.